Working Group 8 in TC171, which is the group that basically develops PDF. What that means is I run the meetings. There's people, Duff Johnson, Peter Wyatt, who actually are the project leads for PDF, the 2000 Part 2 most recently. I've been doing ISO standards for the last 8 years. I'm a project leader of XFDF, and my background's actually in document semantics before I joined Adobe. So that's kind of the background I'm coming from. And I'm primarily representing PDF, PDF UA, PDF A, and PDF E. Those are my specialized areas, but I touch on a few broader areas. So what is this whole presentation about, developing PDF? Well, it's a little bit about acknowledging that there's been a long path to PDF 2.0. And we're now developing a bunch of PDF 2.0 based subset standards, updates to PDF A, E, etc. There are other standards in that family that support those, the main standards, JavaScript standards, 3D standards, etc. I want to talk about how we're evolving those in the context of PDF. I want to talk a little bit about how the industry is building on PDF 2.0 already, what we're seeing from PDF usage beyond just what's published. So how are people using the new features in PDF 2.0 and related? And then I want to talk a little bit about where we're taking PDF 2.0 next, what the ISO committees are working on, what sort of new features, and why we're looking at these things, as well as just a very short thing at the end about the next 25 years, which I'll keep very speculative and very short. So that's what I'm talking about today, just to give you an example. So you've already heard from Richard Cohn this morning that PDF was developed in 1993. In fact, the idea was 1985. It really came under development in 1991. And it was very basic. I'm obviously not listing an exhaustive set of features here, but it wasn't ready for pre-press, as we've already heard. It had internal links, but not web links, basic fonts, some bookmarks, but it's not the PDF we know today. And PDF was developed from 1993 through to 2006, with version releases approximately every 2 years apart. It was a little faster at first, a little slower later. And PDF went from being this very static format to this pre-press ready format to something that was much more interactive. We went from these basic features to adding CMYK and ICC color profiles, but also digital signatures, interactive forms. The tagged PDF as a way of conveying document semantics. And even in the latest standards, 3D. So PDF has had a long set of development. Some are more niche areas, some are broader. But PDF is a toolbox that people use today to interchange material. And I think that's important to understand, because when we released PDF 1.7 as an ISO standard, as 32000 Part 1, 2008, we didn't stop then. We've actually spent the last 10 years, as you all know, developing PDF 2.0. It's added, as I say, my specialization is in semantics, so I'm going to focus on some of my areas. Namespaces, you can now convey semantic information in documents much more richly than you could before. It's got rich media for various 3D formats and video, long-term validation for digital signatures. There's a lot of stuff we've added. We've also done a lot of work to refine the standard, to make it more interoperable. What do I mean by that? Clarify descriptions of how things work, how the syntax works, to make it easier for individuals and companies to build and validate and convey PDF. That's been the main goal of PDF 2.0. It's not a big, massive release, even though we've given it this 2.0 moniker. It's much more about the community, the ISO community, having cleaned up the first version of the standard and added some features. So we've done that, and we've released that last year in the 2017 Part 2 standard. So how are we using this information today? Well, we're already refreshing PDF-A. You've already heard the questions, I think, some of you, about PDF-A4. But PDF-A4 is being created at this point. It's taking on some of the new features from PDF 2.0. You can see here page level output intents, associated file enhancements, which actually came from A3 and are now officially part of the PDF 2.0 standard for use by anyone. Updates to tagged PDF and namespacing. They're also thinking about how they use the other standards that have been created since the original. When PDF A1 was released based on PDF 1.4, there was no PDF UA standard. So there was nothing to refer to for doing accessibility. So it tried to put it into its own standard. Now it can reference out to other standards. There's a lot of confusion in the market, we believe, between PDF A2 and A3. Why would you choose one over the other? Boris, in the last talk, gave a very good, succinct description of why you do either. A2 is a 32,000 Part 1, so PDF 1.7 based version of PDFA. Part 3 adds the ability to use associated files to add attachments and to describe the relationship of those attachments to the material. And so with A4, we've actually decided to combine those two standards into a single standard. The default PDF A4 is focused on what would have been the A2 standard. It's an update and a refresh with PDF 2.0 features. We have a new conformance level F that means file attachments that basically allows people to add attachments to these PDF A4 files. So now you can decide whether you accept a PDF A4 standard document or whether you wish to allow attachments in your archive. That's the big focus of these conformance levels. One of the bigger changes, though, is that we've started to think about how the more interactive features impact PDF, scripting, engineering. A decision was made actually very recently at in last November to actually stop working on PDF E2. So there was a part 2 of PDF E that was targeting PDF 2.0. We realized that actually its primary purpose was archival of engineering. That was in fact why we were creating this. And it was argued quite strongly at the committee that it would make much more sense for PDF A to remain the archival standard for everything. And so we've added this new PDF A4E, which is an engineering, not everything, but PDF 4 engineering. And the idea here is that you can now put 3D, scripting for 3D in there. However, it's very easy for an archive to say we don't allow this because it's not part of the pure PDF A4 standard. So the idea with PDF A4 is to capture the various market needs in a single format with conformance levels to allow us to try to address PDF 2.0 editions in a single format for archive.
There's a question here. So scripting is referring to 3D models, or is it scripting in general?
It's primarily focused on 3D. It's acknowledging the fact that for engineering, you can't do 3D models without being able to script their default appearances, their rotations and manipulations.
So it's not about to generate the current date or things like that?
No, we want to make sure we still want to make sure that when you have a PDFA file, that it's trustworthy, that it's static, that it's good. But this is really interesting. Oh, I was told to use that. Is this okay? Can everyone hear me now? No, Duff, put that on. Okay, I'll hold the microphone. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So that's basically the additions to PDF A4, taking advantage of the new PDF 2.0 structures. PDF UA actually is going to get a really big boost with PDF 2.0. Olaf Drumer, who everyone should know from the PDF Association, did a great job in ISO 32000 Part 2 of really distilling and clarifying the tagged PDF part of the specification, how you convey semantics and structure in documents. And PDF UA Part 2 is going to leverage those enhancements. The ability to talk about namespaces, i.e. to say where the tags you're exchanging come from, as well as to exchange richer, more complete base tag sets. We've added MathML support, which means it's now possible to convey richer mathematics in PDF documents. The associated file mechanism is being used so that you can actually embed MathML directly into the document rather than having to read it through a screen reader and such, and to reuse that content. And one of the big changes between PDF UA Part 1 and Part 2 isn't so much based on PDF 2.0, but is the intent to give a standard that allows you to tag the content you receive or you're authoring. So rather than dictating what's in a document or what a document must contain, it dictates how you tag a document semantically correctly and richly to convey the what you have, especially if you're a remediator who's given a document. You can't change that document's source material. You have to tag what you have. And so we're focusing on really enhancing how you convey the semantics of that document. We're also actually looking to extend PDF 2.0 directly here. There's a lot of mechanisms for extending tagging that are built into the spec that are fundamentally part of PDF 2.0. And we're leveraging those to add things like ARIA semantics to PDF so that we can start to leverage the great work that's going on in the W3C. We can start to use material that the standard screen readers already know how to process to better describe PDF more richly. And as we develop this, we're feeding this back into future 2.0 specifications. So the idea would be 2.0 plus specifications. And I'll get to what that looks like in a few minutes. I do want to touch on PDFX and PDF VT. This is one of my least knowledgeable areas, so I've borrowed some information here. But PDFX 6 is being developed based on PDF 2.0. Just like we've talked about here, it's a direct development of PDF X4. So they've taken the concepts of X4, but now moved it to be PDF 2.0 based and take on board some of the new additions in PDF 2.0. Depart metadata, per page output intents, a lot of stuff I don't really understand, to be totally honest with you, but they're very useful when doing print exchange, pre-press and such. VT, which is the variable and transactional printing form, is also directly based off the same standards. So the previous version of VT was based off of X4. They're updating the new version of VT, VT3, to be based off of X6. So again, leveraging all the PDF 2.0 improvements, enhancements, clarification in language to make it easier to produce these files and exchange them. This isn't so much an ISO standard yet, but it's just starting down this process. The PDF Association started a partnership with Twain a couple of years ago to develop what was known as PDF Raster. PDF Raster is a very, very small subset of PDF 2.0 that allows you to exchange scanner data in a very compact and very efficient manner that allows very low-powered chips to basically create and manipulate this information. It's intended as a workflow standard so that a printer or a scanner would consume this. A scanner would consume this information, send it to a processor that then processes it further and probably takes it out of the raster standard. But it ensures that scanners can talk to processors and work compatibly. It's just being adopted into ISO as a new work item, which means we're going to take this great work that the PDF Association has done and start to develop it out as an ISO standard in its own right, so that people can start to use it where government requirements mandate ISO standards or de jure standards rather than de facto standards. The PDF Association has also done a great job of kind of developing a framework for building standards by doing this. It's mostly targeted at lowest scan image features, but does leverage some of the PDF 2.0 encryption features, which is one of the reasons it's PDF 2.0 based. Just to mention a couple of other standards we're developing in conjunction with PDF 2.0. XFDF is a mechanism for exchanging forms data and annotation data between PDFs. It was designed as it was an Adobe standard that was used to basically extract data from a file and exchange it with an end user, so you don't have to send the whole file back when you're filling in forms. It's heavily used in some workflows, and as part of our move to be more interoperable and to enable the whole ecosystem, rather than have these company-specific standards, we want to make sure all of them are ISO standards, well documented, designed to be interchanged, so that people can leverage these without having to go to Adobe's website or anything. They can go through ISO to get the material they need to implement these things. So XFDF is being developed. We actually published the first, I'm the project leader for this, so I published my first version of this in 2016. I'm currently working on a dated revision to bring 3D functionality into the standard for exchanging 3D annotations. PDF 2.0 introduced introduced the second 3D format that could be used when conveying 3D information. The first format was U3D. The second format is PRC. As part, again, of the initiative to make sure that anything that PDF relies on is a public standard, isn't something that's owned by one company. PRC has been published as an ISO standard. Stuart Gault from Boeing has been driving that project. Again, it was published a few years ago. It doesn't specifically relate to PDF 2.0. It's more that PDF 2.0 relates to this. It includes it as a mechanism for exchanging 3D data. The first version was released, and now we're releasing a second update to this that is basically, there was some errata. Some people had trouble implementing some of the algorithms, so we're trying to make sure all the algorithms are well documented. I'm part of the ad hoc group that is developing this with Stuart Gault as the leader. So I've talked about the standards that are being built on this, the subset standards. I want to switch focus now and talk a little bit about how this is being used in the industry. This first one will be very obvious to the people here. I apologize for my pronunciation, but the Zugford standard. Thank you. So this isn't technically based on PDF 2.0. In fact, it's based on PDF A3. But it leverages the capabilities that I'm going to start to build on now to explain how these are generally being very powerful things that are used in the industry, which are the associated file mechanism. In this case, Zugford takes an XML standard for exchanging invoice data and incorporates it into PDF. PDF is a great 2D and 3D potentially, but a great 2D transmission format where I get perfect print reproduction, so I can send you my invoice. But as a transactional form, something I can actually act on, it's not the greatest format if you just take it at its base rendering. Using associated files and digital signatures and other mechanisms, we can basically rely on the data in the file, an invoice that says, you as a company, you as an individual owes this amount, here's the payment details and the characteristics, and through plugins to popular implementations of software, the users can now automatically pay invoices. It's increasing workflow processing of PDF. And I think this is a great example of industry standards developing and government standards that build on top of the capabilities of PDF. This is 1.7 of PDF A3, but this is now based on something that is fundamental to PDF 2.0, the associated file mechanism. So this is a great example. We're seeing more examples of this. There are examples of MathML being used in the wild, not just for PDF UA, but for exchanging rich mathematics. When you think about language in documents, we easily represent the massive number of languages in the world. But there's this fundamental language, math, that is different. It's something that requires a very structured form of processing that information. PDF 2.0 has introduced two mechanisms to support this. It's declared MathML as a well-known namespace that should be supported by PDF 2.0 processors. So what this means is that you should be able to read the tagging, and if we include MathML tagging, you should be able to consume that information. More importantly, through associated files, we can actually embed the MathML directly alongside that in the, say, the structure tree. And processors can do interesting things with that, like re-render it, allow accessibility, guided tutorials of mathematics. We're seeing some great work from Freedom Scientific in this area. Again, leveraging PDF 2.0, what's already in there, but using it in a very specific manner. So this is a great feature for PDF. It has big impact to accessibility. That's why UA will start to include it. Just another case of associated files being very useful for the industry. There's going to be a talk tomorrow by Dov Isaacs from Adobe about open data in PDF. I just want to touch on this very briefly. There's a W3C initiative to consider PDF and open data. How can PDF play in the open data world, the linked open data? PDF has traditionally been considered somewhat opaque when it comes to data and rich formats. It's considered an endpoint. But the mechanisms defined in PDF 2.0 open this up significantly. Not only can you now attach files, but you can associate that data with very specific parts of page content. This table was generated from this CSV data, or this XML data, or this database. This math was this MathML. There's so many possibilities of associating rich data with specific structures of the page that this can now play a big role in something that isn't just an endpoint, but again, a workflow document. And I think that's something I'm going to keep reinforcing is PDF needs to become more of a workflow format. It's something that isn't just the endpoint of a workflow. It doesn't just go into your archive, but it's something that can be a part of your processing, extracting rich data. Maybe you open those data files directly into Excel or some product to manipulate that data, visualize that data more richly. So this has a big impact to archive because you have richer information in the files, but also to connectivity and workflow operations on PDF. I also want to touch on content reuse. I mentioned already that we've added namespaces and tag PDF. I think one of the big things for the future of PDF is on how we can reuse the content within that PDF. Make new use. Tag PDF, when it was invented, so logical structure was introduced in PDF 1.3 in 1999. Tag PDF was later introduced in 2001 as part of PDF 1.4. This has become used, but as Duff kind of showed in his statistics talk earlier, it's at about 14% of new documents since 2003, I believe was the statistic he shared. But that's not bad, and we're starting to see more and more people adopt it, more governments requiring tagged PDF for accessibility workflows. But it doesn't stop there. It was designed for accessibility, but also content reuse, repurposing, reflow. It's the ability to take the material and understand the content within the PDF. And once you understand it, once you understand what are headings, what are paragraphs, what are lists and tables, it opens up a lot of possibilities for how you can reuse the material, extract that into databases. You can put it out back as a source file, convert back to, say, a Word file that it came from. We've seen Callus and I think Access4 both are producing HTML from PDF as a way of improving accessibility. You can imagine adapting this to different screens and environments through this mechanism, and just richer repurposing all around. So this is one of the areas I think people should be really interested in going forward as we develop on top of PDF 2.0 and future iterations of the standard. This is one that Duff twisted my arm to put in. But in all seriousness, the PDF as a package, as a container, we've talked about putting these files in, but PDFA3 has shown that PDF is more than just a rendering format. You can put a lot of rich data in there. And I think when you start to think about that package and container format, PDF is a great format for having a single entity that contains much more than just a visualization of data. It can have the source files, it can have alternatives for the data, it can have extraction information, it can have processing, scripting. There's any number of things you can add. None of these impact the base rendering of the PDF, just to be clear. PDF is still PDF, it's still very reliable, but as you start to build this information, you can go beyond just content reuse and start to describe workflows and manipulations of that information. You could imagine capturing an email archive as a single PDF and having all that information plus the ability to find out where that information is inside a single PDF, inside an archive. So there's a lot of potential here, and I think that while there's nothing specific happening in this area at the moment, this is something that I think, again, as part of PDF as a workflow and a data container, this is something I think PDF will want to do for a long time. Okay, so I've talked a bit about how the industry is using the features of PDF 2.0. I do want to just touch on where we're taking PDF 2.0 next. So the ISO committee published 32000 Part 2 last year. We're already starting to work on a dated revision that fixes some minor errata, editorial changes to continue that improvement to make sure it's more readable and more interchangeable. While we do that, we formed what we call ad hoc groups, small focused groups of experts who go off and investigate an area and try to bring back that as a new feature. Our goal is to start producing something like PDF 2.1 a few years down the road. We're not trying to rush the market on this, but we are starting to think about how PDF continues to evolve. Encryption and signing are an obvious area. Encryption techniques move forward. Older forms get deprecated as we find that they're insecure. We're already starting to look at what the next additions to PDF that impact encryption are. And I think there is either a talk today or a talk tomorrow that really digs into PDF encryption. At the moment, our links are basically square or rectangles on a page, and you can compose multiple rectangles. But can we have non-rectangular links? Can we describe regions of a page using paths syntax to identify links to other parts of the document, outside of the document? It's a commonly asked for feature, and something that the various engineering groups who are focused on that are starting to investigate. Another thing that's been quite common is the introduction of pencils or pens for tablets. And as you start to do strokes on tablets, the ability to do variable width Bezier paths becomes very valuable. Instead of having to describe a stroke through a series of triangles, you can describe the width change as you go around a smooth curve and such. This isn't something PDF has today. You can fake it by producing multiple curves and filling between the curves, or you can, as I say, produce triangles. But they both have their challenges and are complex to produce. Given Microsoft, Apple, and various other producers, Google, are all producing tablets and devices that take this input, it seems like a great addition to PDF to be able to natively support this. I mentioned U3D and PRC. we're now looking at another format for 3D now. Before everyone panics, another big thing in PDF. 3D is a specialized area. We don't expect the vast majority of people to implement this. But STEP is STEP is an ISO standard. It's rapidly becoming the standard for manufacturers exchanging data. There's two new standards, STEP and I believe JT. That I could be. I'm less familiar with the second standard, but Boeing, all the automotive industry, I believe, are all starting to standardize on STEP as the 3D format for the future. And if PDF doesn't think about how it adopts this, it's going to be outside of those engineering workflows. So this is definitely something that we would want to consider from an ISO perspective in the future. And there's a group going and investigating this. Some ICC-N-based colors, describing colors not just as 3 or 4 colors, but as different variants and such, not my area of expertise. And we're starting to get feedback from the PDF UA committees on gaps in our tagging. And so we've basically, we're doing an update to Tag PDF to address those gaps. So we've hit PDF at 25. I'm not going to predict the future, but I can talk about some of the areas that I think we'll want to look at as we go forward. I think PDF has a long future ahead of it, and I can imagine another 25 more years at least. Blockchain formats, richer data formats, greater semantics, all of these reimagine PDF as a more dynamic format that enables us to do workflow and exchange on that format. And this is where I see the direction of PDF as we go forward, while retaining its document of record, archival, reproducibility of print, all the good stuff that PDF has that we build on top of. Okay, that's the end of my talk. Any questions?
So if you come back to that slide where you mentioned the PDF X, I know it's not your expertise, but just
Choose the one hard bit.
yeah, regarding the rules, forms, restrictions, do you have any knowledge on that?
My only knowledge of this is, I say, I got this list from some of the experts who do work on these standards. I understand that at the moment in PDF X4 that you can't have any interactive form fields.
Sure.
And for whatever purpose that they are now intending to convey those. We do in PDF 2.0 require appearance streams to be placed inside of annotations, so you can always generate the appearance deterministically. But as to how that has been addressed into X6 for Exchange and how to do it reliably, Dove Isaacs, Leonard Rosenthal, those are the people you want to speak to.
Cool. The second question is, I had it also years ago, the same question. Giddy, let's say, we can call it PDF AX or something like that. So the basic idea is to have a PDFX, which is converted to archiving format, so we can archive the print.
So the design of the A and X standards, as well as UA, is that they're intended to be compatible with each other. They try not to conflict with each other unnecessarily. What that means is that if you conform to PDF A4 in the future and X6 at the same time, you can declare the file, because the metadata declaration that says this is an X6 or an A4, they're mutually exclusive, as in they don't impact each other. So I can say this is an A4 file and an X6 and a UA file for that matter, and that's perfectly fine. So rather than actually trying to write a standard that combines the two, the project leader for X and an A, Leonard Rosenthal, carefully keeps the standards 100% in sync for any shared requirements. That way there's no chance that you can have a requirement for X that fundamentally violates a requirement for A. It doesn't mean that they are guaranteed to be compatible. I could choose a feature of X that isn't compatible with A. So the simplest thing is to follow both standards on a single document, follow the rules, the subsetting, and if you achieve both, you can declare both.
And the last question, sorry, the last question is regarding the Adobe itself, and what is your timeline on supporting these standards?
That's a great question, and it's not one I can answer directly. Adobe has many products that implement PDF. Everyone thinks of Acrobat and Adobe Reader, but in reality, InDesign, FrameMaker, Lifecycle products, various things interact. we want to make sure that all of those things are compatible and that they're producing the right output and consuming each other before we declare that we support fundamentally. You'll start to see in our software PDF 2.0 compatibility in the not too distant future. We're not going to invalidate the files or break them, but whether we actually create them and do other things with them, that's something that we will, see as this evolves.
Let's say next year.
I can't commit to any product timeline, sorry. So I think there's one here first.
Is XFA finally dead?
So that's a great question. I think they got the garlic and the steaks and no. So yes, XFA is deprecated in PDF 2.0. What does deprecated mean? Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that it can't be there, because there's a path to upgrade PDF 1.x files to 2.0. But what it means is we shouldn't be creating new PDF 2.0 files with XFA. If you take an XFA document and use a structured bookmark, that's okay, because there's stuff like structured destinations that identify the content to which they're bound that are really important. But generally, yes, there's no one developing on top of XFA for PDF 2.0 and beyond. That said, PDF 2.0 does not replace PDF 1.7. I think that's a really important thing for the industry to understand. Adobe, as one company who deals with PDF, tries to always choose the lowest version of the format that has all the features you need to achieve your end goal. So if you need an encryption standard that's part of PDF 1.6, it's 1.6. If you need compressed object streams, it's 1.5. We always take the lowest number that meets all of our goals. 1.5 is the lowest because we always want to compress object streams, because that's just efficient. And so we're not just going to default to PDF 2.0 for the sake of it. It's not implemented everywhere yet. Even when we do support it, we would still want to use PDF 1.7 and earlier when appropriate, when that's the right format to use. And so what that means is that we will probably continue to produce XFA in 1.7 format compatibly, but there's no intent to continue that into future versions of PDF. I think there's a question.
A question about 3D PDF. You mentioned that the new standard will support U3D and PRC. U3D never took off, and it was essentially abandoned eventually by Intel. So what's the incentive for including U3D as essentially a legacy format that competes with PRC in a new standard, like for PDF-A, and then also introducing that in another format like STEP, maybe down the road?
Yeah.
This kind of fragmentation.
So it's a great question. So U3D was the first version we supported, and it's very hard to drop something that has been adopted and is being used in the industry. PRC serves some different purposes. I believe U3D has certain innate animations that PRC doesn't. So there are some use cases to use U3D over PRC. PRC is a much richer format. When we developed PRC, and it's not specifically Adobe, but something that we acquired and then developed further out, and now is part of ISO, it supports a lot of features of 3D. What we are starting to hear from some engineering communities is that PMI, other information, composite materials in 3D are really important features. And the industry is moving very rapidly on these things. I suspect actually there are other people who can answer this question better than myself in the audience. But basically, we certainly don't want to fragment PDF. On the other hand, we don't want to doggedly stay with a single format that's maybe when people are moving away from. I'm not saying that's the case with PRC. I'm not an engineering expert. I don't pretend to know. What we have heard from certain very large communities is that STEP is just fundamentally necessary to their production. It's what they exchange with other vendors. CAD programs consume it back in as a fundamental data source in addition to their own CAD formats. So again, enabling PDF as a workflow document, I can send you this file. I can see the rendition of the STEP data directly as a visualization, but I can also open that back into my CAD program, assuming I have the appropriate permissions to get to that data. Encryption and other things are applied. And so, again, it's something that the community needs to drive. This certainly isn't coming from Adobe. This is something that is being asked for primarily from the engineering community. The 3D PDF Consortium is driving this push, and they're telling us as the ISO committee that it's the right thing to do. We've asked them to develop the spec for it, to look at implementations, and then we can decide as a committee if it's the right way to move forward. So I'm not saying we're definitely adopting STEP, and that's not the message I want to give. I'm trying to talk about the things we're investigating, how we might take them into the standard if it's appropriate to do so. Okay, thank you very much.